Hello, everyone. Welcome to our super exciting, hugely of the moment webinar where we'll be answering your questions about Facebook ads. Facebook ads, the awesome channel for e-commerce, but also a channel where we've seen a huge amount change recently. And actually, sorry, not recently, about the last 18 months, we've seen an awful lot change, and where it's certainly a time that how to deal with those changes is pretty rock solidly known now. And that's what we've been covering all month in the podcast. And it's what our experts are going to be helping you with in today's session. Across our month of Facebook ads on the podcast, we have predominantly focused in on creative. We will be talking about that today, but you are welcome to ask us anything you want to know on Facebook ads. And to that end, the asking questions end of things, what I really want you to do is to put in the comments, wherever you are watching this, add to the comments, because it will feed through to me, your questions about Facebook ads. Do it sooner rather than later, because when the conversation gets going on these things, I run out of time to ask your questions. The sooner you get your question in, the more likely I am going to be able to get it answered by our experts. So if you're sitting there going, well, I really want to answer this, but I'll see what happens. Don't ask the question now. And I will make sure, if you ask it now, I will make sure we answer it. Otherwise, no guarantees. But you are welcome to add questions and comments as we go along, because who knows where this discussion is going to go. It's one of the fun things about hosting this. So, Facebook ads, what should be on your to-do list right now? That is our topic. Who is going to be joining me? Well, we've got a stellar lineup, 4 whole Facebook ad experts joining us today. And hello, Tony. Great to have you joining us on LinkedIn. You are welcome to ask questions as well as simply say hello to me, but I'll definitely take a hello. So joining us as the guest today, we've got Becky Hopkin from Digital Gearbox. You can find out more about what they're up to at digitalgearbox.co.uk and how to get their help. We've got Rob Harrison-Plastow from Time Agency, who is, this rarely happens on the podcast. Usually everyone's at least several hundred miles away from me. Rob is probably less than 20 miles away from me right now. Scary. There's a close guest in geographical proximity. Rob is at Time Agency, and he came on the podcast to talk all about the original empathy blueprint, which is a game changer if you want to get your messaging spot on. You can download your free copy via keepopt.com/Time Agency. We've also got Colby Flood, who is possibly the furthest away from me right now, coming at us from the States, who is from BrighterClick, where they are completely committed to Facebook ads. And you can access a complimentary Facebook ad account audit and action plan to improve your account performance by 200 to 300% in 60 to 90 days at brighterclick.com/Facebook ads. And last but not least, we've got the marvellous Antoine Gagne, who's been on the show multiple times because he always brings the goods. So no pressure, Antoine. I can see him almost smiling at me off stage there. He's from J7 Media, also completely committed to Facebook ads. And you can sign up to their brilliant The Facebook Ads Squad email, where they share the latest updates of what's happening in Facebook ad land at j7media.com/squad. For those who don't know me, I am Chloe Thomas, the host of the eCommerce MasterPlan podcast and the Keep Optimizing podcast, author of various books, been in this industry for long enough. I now have these lovely grey hairs in my fringe, or bangs if you're tuning in from America and wondering what on earth I'm talking about. You can find everything about this podcast at keepoptimizing.com. Right, that is definitely enough of me solo. Let us bring up some of these brilliant guests and ask them to tell you a little bit more about what they're up to in the world of Facebook ads. Antoine, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe, again. I'm always happy to be on your show, on your podcast, on a webinar today. So like you said, my name is Antoine Gagne. I run the company called J7 Media, pure Facebook advertising agency. I'd say that maybe 80%, 85% of our customers are D2C brands, e-commerce brands. And yeah, you're right. In the past 18 months, a lot of things have changed. And I do think that the panel today would be a great discussion to understand what everyone is doing right now, because we have a lot to share and a lot of things to bring to the attention of your audience.
Awesome. And Colby, your turn.
I appreciate you having me on. I hate that you have me go after Antoine. He has such an elegant European accent, and then I'm coming from the southern states of there's North Carolina, a southern state. Yeah, my name is Colby Flood. I own BrighterClick. We're a paid social agency that works with e-commerce companies running Facebook, Instagram ads. We're also in the process of building out creative strategy and creative production implementation for businesses. Super excited to share the opportunities e-commerce companies have with creative production on Facebook as well.
Oh, hold on. Chloe's trying to do too many things to get the right things in front of people. So she almost forgot to mute herself. Theme of the afternoon, if you'd been here off stage. Right, thank you very much, Colby. And I like your accent. I'm not, not against the southern US accent. Rob's agreeing there as well. Becky, you're up next.
I like the accent too, but I'll put my most British, non-coldy accent on for you all. Hello, I'm Becky Hopkin of Digital Gearbox. You might have seen me on previous webinars, normally talking about Google Ads rather than Facebook ads. And that's because at Digital Gearbox, we started primarily just doing Google Ads. But over the years, we've expanded onto other pay-per-click channels, including Facebook and Instagram ads. So yeah, we've kind of generally done it as an extension of Google campaigns generally, though over the last few years, we have just started to do some pure Facebook activity. But I'm looking forward, I said before the call, I'm looking forward to speaking to the guys who do it day in, day out for the full day. So I'm excited about the conversations we're going to have today.
So Becky, like all of you watching us here, has much to learn as to participate, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And Rob, last but definitely not least.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on. Thank you for the invite. My name's Rob. I'm from Time Agency. We build and optimize e-commerce stores, mainly on Shopify, and we run our own stores as well. And I've been on the podcast previously talking about how we scaled one of our stores very, very quickly using Facebook ads.
There we go. So star of both podcasts, Rob, wearing his various different hats. Right, guys, thank you for all the intros. I can now stop clicking things and copying and pasting things, so I get to focus entirely on you now. And I'm gonna start with, what should I start with? I'm looking at my script, going, where should we go? I'm going to start with a big question we did not address at all during the month which we've just done, which I know a lot of people are wringing their hair out with at the moment. We all know that the iOS 14 and all the rest of it changes made a big difference to our targeting and everything, but it also made a huge difference to attribution, which is something a lot of people are trying to work out. How do I work out what's working? How do I work out what isn't working? Colby, Antoine, you guys are fully in depth in this, and I'm sure you're getting challenged about this by your customers. So what's your tips for someone out there who's running their own Facebook ads to cope with the attribution issues?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And actually, there's a lot of different answers that you can give to that. Maybe to start, just to give more context, obviously, attribution has been something really hard with Facebook ads in the past year, but they made a lot of improvement. A couple of numbers for you today. In September 2021, Facebook made it public that all across the board, you're losing at least 15% of the conversions that you're actually generating. Okay, so let's say you're making a bunch of sales with your campaigns, you're going to lose at least 15% of these conversions because of this, iOS 14 thing, ATT thing that Apple brought us in April of 2021. Number one. Now they made a second announcement in January 2022, saying that we're losing now 8% only. So they made 50% of improvement. Their engineers are working quite well on this. So I think it's important to mention that there are still a lot of issues, but their engineers are working really hard, and slowly but surely they're finding solutions. Now, what do we do now? How can we make sure that we're able to generate results with our campaigns? I think that, first of all, you can go back to just the basic, looking at how your sales are going. It's something that in the past few years, everyone was so crazy about attribution, which ad, which campaign. We realized at the end of the day that if the sales are going up and the overall investment in media is accurate and the ratio is good, we we can actually continue to invest. And for our customer, that's literally what they're looking at more than only looking at the results from this campaign or this campaign. So I think overall sales and overall ratio are extremely important. And number three, obviously, you need to use third-party software, because as an agency or as a media buyer, only looking at one platform like the Facebook Ads Manager is not enough. So maybe to give a bit of ideas for your audience today, in our agency right now, when we're working with Shopify brands, we're using Triple Whale, extremely easy tool to use, not very expensive, quite cheap to be totally frank, good to use. We also use Iros. So these kind of software can give you a good ideas on your results that you're going to get with your different campaigns. And I think that if you're able to use these three, but if you're able to understand that the engineers are doing better, then after that, you understand your overall ratio, and then you can use third-party softwares. And maybe number four, also make sure that the numbers that you look in your ads manager are numbers that are related to the platform. Meaning, do not look at only the conversion value or return on ad spend. Look at CTR, cost per click, things that are happening on the platform that Facebook, that Meta is able to report to you. So I think these four things would be where I would go with your question, Chloe.
Wow, that's quite an impressively comprehensive answer there. Those of you who are watching, we will make sure the links to those tools that Antoine just mentioned are on the page where we publish this on the website. So if you're on our email list, you will get that later on today. If you're not, go join our email list. Colby, anything you would add to that, or is it simply a case of third-party software and add 8% to everything?
Yeah, I would definitely echo the Triple Whale opportunity. I think that's great. Really looking at your blended return across all of your channels that way. One thing to look at too, so we know we have attribution loss, but that also means that we have data loss as well, which limits our retargeting abilities. One thing we've been looking at, we haven't rolled this out yet, but there's a tool called Customer Labs, which focuses on hashing all of your email data through your website, because that's the main thing that we're losing when we're getting that attribution and data loss is hashed email, which is not making our match rate fix well. So we're looking at Customer Labs to see how we can have one third-party tool that will hash all of the data, send it out across channels, Google, Facebook ads that way, so you can improve your retargeting abilities as well, because when you can't retarget properly, you can't scale as effectively that way.
Oh, nice. That's like a targeting hub. Gather all the data and then
ideally,
spin it out.
Yeah.
Nice. An extra thing to set up there. Rob, Becky, I'm only going to come to you guys if you've got something you want to add into this one. Rob's nodding away. Okay, Rob.
Okay, so I've got a couple of things that I'm doing that are working quite well. So in terms of the being able to track it, what I've been doing is running ad sets to different URLs. So duplicating pages and only sending traffic from specific ad sets to those pages. And then running Google Analytics on the page so that I know that whatever's coming through onto that page has come from that one ad set. So I can still track which ad sets are working and which ones aren't. And that's totally free. I'm also running a spreadsheet, just putting all my data in it and splitting it out from all my different channels, from what I can see in Shopify, what I can see in Facebook, what I can see in my bank account, what I can see, what I know is for sure. Put that all in the spreadsheet and start working out from there. Okay, well, how much am I putting in? How much am I getting out? And then the other thing I'm experimenting more with is doing more stuff in Facebook. So retargeting based on video and duration of watch and engagement with posts and things like that. But then also thinking about, well, how can I optimize Facebook Shop or Instagram Shop? What would it, what's performance like if I start pushing ads to stay within Facebook rather than going anywhere? And then that way, if you're in Facebook, you get 100% of your data. And if you're splitting things out across different URLs from different ad sets, you're getting 100% of your data. The only thing that's lacking on the second one is the machine learning. So that's not seeing it. However, I am also noticing a lag. If you wait long enough, more data comes in. So over the longer term, And especially if you're pushing at volume, you'll still be getting enough data points for the machine learning to optimize. Not as many as there used to be, not as quickly as there used to be, but it does still happen. As Anton was saying, the engineers are doing loads of really good stuff. And if you wait long enough, it does start to actually come back in again and start to optimize. So yeah, those are the few things that we've been trying recently that seem to be doing quite well.
So I'm sure there's going to be some comments coming back on that one in a second, but I just want to clarify something before I carry on, Rob. Those the separate landing pages, is that some, and the spreadsheet where you're pulling in all the data from all the sources to try and work out how they're playing against each other, is that something you envisage doing? And I'm assuming this is for your own brand as well as for other people's. You envisage doing right the way through the Q4 holiday season massive sales period, or are you hoping to use that for your testing through Q3 to learn some rules that you're then just going to roll out and do the big stuff with normal tracking for Q4? Because I can just see people going, oh my God, I've got to do that in Q4. And I'm guessing that's not the case. This is the test stage.
We're doing it now, and we'll be doing it into September, and then we'll know exactly what ad sets like. Obviously, it's different in terms of buyer intent this time of year, but in being able to differentiate between which audiences, for example, when we're doing like our interest targeting and so on, and trying to work out what's going on there, then yeah, we can play around a lot beforehand and see which ones are going to be more likely to perform than others, so we can at least prioritize where we're going to be placing our spending, which audiences we think are going to give us the most opportunity to scale.
Cool. Any thoughts on that from the rest of you? Good ideas, bad ideas?
Maybe there's one thing I would add, because I think what Rob said is extremely fascinating. I think people should also understand that there's a lot of sales that we're going to generate from the view attribution that we will never be able to see. Okay, so let's say you run ads and you only look at your click and your conversions. You don't look at maybe your ads reach 1 million people in the past month. What's very interesting by having separate URL is, at the end of the day, that all the sales that are going to happen on this URL are coming from your ad. And most of the time you will not be able to see that because you only look at the click. But now you know that all the people are going to be on this URL. If they see your ad and they see the URL, but they don't click on it, but they Google it after, it's coming from this ad after. So it's extremely interesting to isolate the results that this specific ad or this specific campaign is going to generate for your company.
I think it's always been a challenge with Facebook that you have those views that aren't connected anywhere. So throughout time, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, we still didn't see everything on Facebook ads anyway. So we have to assume there's that extra bit there. All right. Anything else on attribution, or I'm going to draw a line under it? Okay. Becky, go for it.
I was just going to say the one thing that we've been doing more of that kind of I don't think has been mentioned so far is just thinking about what other events can be tracked rather than just the sale. I know e-commerce, it's all about pounds in, pounds out at the end of the day. But if you can get more data in by looking at things like add to cart, for example, just going further up the funnel, we found that quite, especially for feeding the algorithms, we found that quite a valuable thing for getting more data in to work with and to optimize. So I think my recommendation on top of all these other really good ones would be just make sure you're not just thinking about that end sale and setting up events to track other actions on the websites as well.
Definitely, which I think totally fits in with the point that both Antoine and Colby said about thinking about it's more important the overall Facebook activity to sales than it is individual campaigns to sales in that whole piece, which of course the more brand awareness pieces are going to have more view through stuff rather than click through stuff, and they're more likely to lead to an unfinished event, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Right, everyone out there watching, you should get your questions in now if you want to ask them. This is our Q&A session. Our panelists are here ready to answer your Facebook ads questions, big and small. So get the questions in now so we definitely have time to answer them. Because if you leave it to the last 5 minutes, the chances are I won't have time to ask them for you. So there's your warning. Just add those in wherever you're watching, and those will fly into me via the power of integrations. Okay. So we've ticked attribution. We're going to try and leave that one alone for a bit. But I guess I have to. So the other thing which we totally didn't mention in our month, where we were primarily focusing on creative, and we will talk a bit about creative before we wrap up, but was targeting. We touched on it there in a couple of ways, feeding the algorithm using different methods. Colby's brilliant tip of customer labs, was it, Colby?
For retargeting, yes.
Yeah, customer labs for getting that data in. How, and Antoine, you mentioned about how the attribution problem, Facebook have reduced the problem by 50% in the last kind of 6 months or so. Targeting is the other bit which has been massively degraded by both internal changes on Facebook and the amount of data they're getting back. Is that improving in the same way? Have we got any clever ways of dealing with that? And I'm just going to let someone jump in on this one.
I got something unless somebody else wants to go.
No, go for it, Colby.
So what we're seeing is go broad with targeting. Used to, it was really about 1% lookalike, add to cart, 2%, 3% lookalike. So we're really starting to stack our lookalikes by high intent, low intent source audiences. So you can take your add to cart, purchase, checkout initiated, all the sorts, take a 8 to 10% of each of those, stack them into one ad set. Same with our interest. We're wanting to go broad with targeting for interest as well. A couple of reasons. One, we know we're losing targeting abilities because you can create an audience of 2 million people, and then 2 weeks later, it could be 1.2 million people because Facebook lost interest targetability, right? So we're going broad with targeting. And then how we can help narrow down people is treat it like it's SEO. So if you have very good schema markup on your website, then the Facebook bots that crawl your website when you launch an ad will understand who you are, what you sell, and who you're trying to reach. And then you need to also treat your Facebook ad copy as if it is SEO on page as well. What I will warn you about is the algorithm is super smart. It works lightning fast. It's great, but it also doesn't have full conditional mind like we do. So NC State, a college that's right down the road from me, put out a study and showed that Facebook interest targeting or Facebook interest attribution per person can be about 29% incorrect, because as they put, if you put a post on Facebook that says, I hate green cheese, it'll see you talked about green cheese, but won't register what hate is, right? So limit the quantity of your copy. I'm very against long form copy. I know it has its place for certain sales funnels, but limit your copy to not confuse the algorithm so you can have your keywords in there. So that schema markup on your website, treating your copy like it's SEO, and then really focusing on those broader audiences that way.
Awesome. Excellent pieces of advice in there. I hadn't heard the schema one before. Hadn't even dreamed that schema was feeding into Facebook. So that's very cool. And everyone, schema markup is something you should have for many, many reasons. This is just another reason you should have sorted it out if you haven't already. Anyone want to add, agree, disagree? Antoine, you were either tapping or writing away furiously there. So give it to us.
Yeah, I think Colby mentioned something that's right. Broad targeting, giving maximum ability to Facebook to make sure to Meta to target the right people is extremely important. We know that everything that they have with the conversion API now helps them to target the right people. I will not disagree with that. That being said, my view on audiences and targeting changed a bit in the past few weeks and the past few months, to be totally frank. In the past 2 years, we've been, maybe past year and a half, we've been 90%, 100% almost all of the time on broad audiences without any interest. That was the way to go. That's how we were generating most of our sales, and we still get decent results with this approach. But I think,
Antoine, just to clarify, when you say broad audience with no interest, are we literally meaning everyone in Canada who's over 18?
So let me give more context. It's a really good question. Thanks for asking, Chloe. Making sure that your target, let's say everyone in a specific country without any age range, no targeting based on the gender, like nothing like that. Just making sure that you give all the flexibility, all the ability to the machine to find the right buyers, because that's what the machine is asking you. Give me a lot of ability, a lot of flexibility, and I will find the people that want to buy your products. That being said, I do think that right now, everything that has been said on the Power 5, which if your audience do not know, I encourage them to Google Facebook Power 5. It's a good way to understand 5 strong principles in Facebook advertising. I think targeting and these different things can be challenged. And that's what we told our account manager and our manager at Facebook, at Meta right now, is everything that you gave us as advice, most of the time it works. But let's be honest, in the past 6 months, your advice were not as great as they were before. And now we're trying to challenge the status quo. And you know what? They say, you're right. Right now, we are revisiting a bit everything that we told our clients. That's why the Power 5 has been released in 2019. And Facebook since didn't release any new thing because they're not ready yet to tell their media buyers, their advertisers, the new way to advertise on the platform. So I do think that this is extremely important to have that as context. And now what do you do as a media buyer? You can challenge the status quo. Right now, we're doing that for maybe 15 to 20% of our accounts to literally launch a campaigns, having 20 to 30 different audiences in a specific campaign with granular interest, with a small budget on these audiences and trying to feed another campaign. So let's say this campaign X is trying to feed the campaign Y with a lot of different audiences, and we try to change it every single day. I'm not going to suggest or advise your audience that this is the way to go. But what I'm saying is right now is a tremendous and a great time to challenge the status quo and see if there's a new way to go, because it has been so challenging in the past year with Facebook ads that you cannot just think that what was working in 2021 and 2020 in terms of audiences and targeting is still accurate.
Nice. And I'm guessing that if we all go and sign up to your email newsletter, we'll find out whether that massively hard work tactic, which is going to take you hours, works or not. So hot off the press ideas there. Cool. So we're building on it here. Lots of different ideas for your campaigns. And even without all the stuff that's going on in Facebook land at the moment, Q3 is the time to be testing new ideas ready for Q4, assuming your business usually does well in the holiday season. Rob, you were nodding along to both Colby and Antoine's answers there. What would you add in the world of targeting?
I'd echo that. Like the non-interest targeting, like nothing, literally just wide open with a location. That was used to be like my end game from scaling. I could scale up through from like cold to warm, my lookalikes, just like going really big, and then my end game would be, okay, I'm just going to open this out completely broad now and just let the machine do the work. And I think more and more that's actually, as long as you've got a seasoned pixel, as long as you've got enough data, you've got enough to go on, it knows what to do, let it do it. Give it a go. Why not? Try it. I've also seen audiences, so interests that we were previously targeting, disappear and then come back again under a slightly different guise. So I'd say keep having a look, keep playing around with different ideas, thinking a bit laterally around some of the interests, because some of the ones that were absolutely crucial for us in Q4 last year completely disappeared. And then recently playing around, very, very similar things, slightly different wording, but the principle remains the same. So it's like disappeared here, popped up over there. So keep an open mind.
Oh, that's a good day, isn't it? When your key interest has disappeared and then you find it's come back. That's a good day. Becky, anything you'd like to put in there on the targeting front?
Yeah, we're trying a combination of broad targeting and specific targeting, and I think, Rob, your advice about thinking laterally is really important for both for Google, any pay-per-click for Facebook. And I think too many people get hung up that I want to target surfers, for example, and they look for it and they can't find it, and they think, I'm not going to do Facebook ads, but find people that are interested in the beach instead. Think about people that are interested in Cornwall. Think about other ways, and do keep checking those interests, because I've seen them change as well, Rob. So
I have I have a question on targeting, which is pretty selfish in its nature, because this is going to save me from doing some research and checking if it still exists or not. Last year we did, or last year could have been the year before, we ended up talking in one of the podcasts about how you can do some kind of partnership in the back end of Facebook with another company and share lists and share audiences with them in order as an influencer marketing tactic, etc., etc. Is something which I always thought deserved a lot of traction. I haven't heard anyone talking about it at all recently. Can you still swap lists with anyone? Does anyone know? Does anybody care, for that matter? Anyone? You're going, don't ask me this question, Chloe. Anyone want to?
No, I'm all ears. Can you tell me a bit more about that? What do you mean, like using I've seen it where an influencer, you run ads through their account in order to give them exposure, so it looks more native, and you get the trust issue from them. Is that what you're talking about?
It's that tech. So you can essentially pretend to be someone else via your ad account, and you could also use someone else's audiences. So in the influencer case, if you're selling cupcakes and you've got your influencer as the cupcake brand, you can run ads that appear to be from the cupcake person. If you're going to try this, people, get the cupcake person to write the ad. Otherwise, it's really not going to work. And then you can also put that ad in front of the cupcake person's audience, and you can put your own ad in front of cupcake person's audience. And I've forgotten which hand is you and which one's the cupcake. Yeah, that's the theory, which goes by various names: partnership marketing, dark posts. There's various others, but it's we've been in this coming month on the podcast, we're talking about partnerships, and it strikes me that this is something you could do with another retailer who targets a similar audience, but in a different way. Antoine, you look like you almost might want to tackle this one for me, but I understand.
To be totally frank, we did that several times in the past, share audiences. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not even sure if this feature is still there in the ads manager, because we didn't do that for at least 6 months. If it's still there, it's great, but I do think it will move away at some point with everything that we're seeing in the privacy world. Share audiences will be something that I do think will disappear. But we did that in the past with influencers, and obviously it's extremely powerful to just tap on influencers' audience when your product is for their audience as well. We see great results. Now there is maybe a better way to do that, which is branded content, that you can run the ads with the influencer with branded content. But yeah, it's something that we tested in the past, but to be honest, we didn't test for at least 6 months now. And I know that features can go away quite quickly sometimes.
Yeah, and it was... I was just saying, Colby, I'll come to you in a second, but it was forever just one of those utter nightmares to try and set up as well. One of the ones, we'll just give it 24 hours and see if it'll work tomorrow. So not a fun one to be doing. Colby, you were going to add in there.
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, couldn't you just get page access to your ad account and then set up a custom audience of anyone that's engaged with that page in the past X amount of days? Is that the type of audience you're looking for? Or are you looking for a specific list?
No, this would literally be if you were doing it with an influencer who had a big Facebook page, the people who are on their Facebook page or the people who've been to their website. So if you were swapping with another retailer, you could have their custom audience of lists is the theory. But I'm taking us down a rabbit hole. And we've had a question in, which is quite a long question. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll come back to you on that question. But in the meantime, our big topic this month has been creative. And Colby, you mentioned about, well, we've been talking throughout the month about how creative is pretty much essential now, and it's the key thing you've got to get right if you're going to see any success at all. And you mentioned in your intro that it's a big part of what you're now doing for your customers at Brighter Click. So what are your top creative tips at the moment for anyone who is taking everything we've been talking about and building them up to their things to test in Q3 ready for Q4?
Yeah, I would say start very high level and look at creating some messaging and some content purposes or themes with what you're putting out there. So with your messaging, what part of your business or your story works? Is it founder story? Is it brand mission? Is it made in the USA and you're selling in the USA? Is it sustainability? There's many more on that list, but like what higher level things are the purpose behind your messaging with your creative? Is it UGC? Is it color changing GIFs? Is it PR content, which is a huge winner? Is it flat lay lifestyle combo photography? Is it lifestyle photography? What types of content is working for you? Run tests that way first, and then really start to dial in from there on how you can start to optimize it and how you can start to change it. And what I'll tell you to do is make sure you're using naming conventions. I know Rob said, I think it was Rob said he uses spreadsheets to kind of use all of his data there. We use Supermetrics and put it into Google Sheets. And when you have naming conventions in your ads, you can understand at a very quick glance, not only which ad is performing, but what purpose or what piece of content purpose is performing as well. So that's just a very high level what I would do, but we could definitely drill into a lot of things with creative there.
I'm guessing Rob's going to join you in this because, you know, you're very passionate about getting the messaging right and getting that empathetic part right in the ads. And I'm guessing that's what a lot of your separate landing page targeting is about, is working out the empathy at the moment.
I also just want to say, yeah, Colby, spreadsheet geekery, absolutely love it. Naming conventions, definitely. Like all of mine go for like TOF, MOF, like top of funnel, middle of funnel. I love all that stuff. So yeah, absolutely, I'm with you on that one. And then for me, it's all about the hook. So the first line of the copy and the first few seconds of the video has to be absolutely loaded with something that is going to just hook the heart of your customer, whoever's looking at it. So the big thing here at Time Agency is all about empathy. So trying to look through the eyes of the potential customer, and we properly study, interview, focus group with customers to understand exactly what's going on at an emotional level in response to the product or service that's being offered and purchased, and really going deep down into the different emotional needs that are coming up because of that. So when we have emotional needs that are being met, we feel good, we have positive emotions. And when we have emotional needs that are not being met, we have negative emotions. Now, marketing for years has always been about this, like the push of pain and the pull of pleasure, you know, moving people from pain to pleasure through your copy, through your creative and so on. So what we do is we take that down to another level. Sorry, there's traffic here. And we've actually got a framework of what are the emotional needs. What does it feel like when those needs are not being met? What does it feel like when they are being met? What words, therefore, come up as a result of that we could then use in our creative and our copy that will resonate deeply with the viewer? And then also, we think about, are there certain sensations that go along with those different types of emotions? What sort of colors, what sort of textures, what sort of things could we have in the creative, on the landing pages? Because so much of the experience when you hit a landing page isn't necessarily the copy. It's going to be the colors, it's going to be the branding, it's going to be the fonts, it's going to be the look and feel of the website and so on. And you can emote in those things in ways in which that are, you know, congruent with what the emotional activity is that's going on in the person's mind. So we find that those interviews that we do and those focus groups at the beginning are worth their weight in gold, because once we get down into the nitty-gritty of it and we can understand what is truly motivating people on an emotional level, you can just spread that out into so many different aspects, into the copy in the ads, into the copy on the website, the colors, the branding, everything. So then you can meet your prospect where they are. There's a quote that I quite like, which is something along the lines of, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'll give it a go. Something along the lines of, your ability to persuade somebody is equal to the depth at which you understand them. So the more you understand people, the more able you can persuade them, give them what they need and want, and help them make decisions. And the vast majority of decision making is on an emotional basis. It's not logical. We like to think
true.
it is,
and Rob,
but that
I'm
happens
going to
afterwards.
cut you a little bit short there because we've only got about 5 minutes left, and you're about to you're getting very deep into what we've already covered in the podcast. So I'm going to take the opportunity to go, everyone, listen to the podcast if you want the full ins and outs of that, which you'll find at keepoptimizing.com, and you can get Rob's guide to it, which we talk about on that podcast episode at keepop.com/time agency. Sorry, Rob. Okay, I've got a question, but I don't think it's an ads question. Sorry, Tony. So I'm going to come and answer that later on LinkedIn with you because we're a bit short on time. But who else has, Becky, Antoine, do you guys have any quick creative tips you want to share with everyone? And Becky, I'm going to come to you first to be super targeted, and then I'm going to let Antoine have the last word.
Sure. I think my tip would just be, yes, it's super important to test different things and to have tests running. But I've seen a lot of people get hung up on wanting to test 50 different things at once. And obviously, unless you've got a huge budget, you're not going to get enough data to help you make meaningful decisions. So I would, for anyone with smaller budgets that's just dipping their toes into Facebook ads, think about what the highest priority things are to test first and make a priority order of different messaging you want to test, or even different ad formats. Obviously, in my podcast, I talked about the different ad formats available, and some people get so hung up on testing a certain color, for example, they haven't even tested video versus image ads and the difference that can make for their business. So keep it simple unless you've got big budgets, would be my big tip.
Brilliant advice. It's so easy to do that massive whiteboard of ideas and try and put it all live, which just takes so much time apart from anything else.
Yeah.
Right. Antoine, the last word from you, please, sir.
Yeah, I think something very actionable for the audience today. So a little bit of context in 20 seconds. So we created our creation studio, I think maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and all the people that we were hiring at that time were graphic designer, copywriter, and we still hire a lot of them. But now in the past year and a half, I'd say that all the people that we're hiring are content creator. Why? Because, UGC is playing a huge part in the content creation aspects now. So it's extremely important to understand that your phone can replace a lot of things in the content creation now compared to what we saw in the past. Something that everybody knows, but I think it's important to mention again. Another thing that we tried this quarter and we will keep doing in the next few months is, before, our team was looking at a client and trying to think about different angles where we can create ads for this specific clients. Now we totally changed our approach. So what we do every week, we go and we look at all the great ads that we can find online about different companies, different verticals, different countries. We bring that in the doc where we do our workshop, our creative workshop every Thursday. And then we look at all these ads and then we ask ourselves one question: which client can have the same ad? So instead of thinking about our client first, we look at other content that are working really well. And then we ask ourselves, can we apply this to one of our clients? And it speed up our creation process by like 5 times. And we're getting way better results because other people did the work in the past. With you can find great inspiration on the ad library. And there's a lot of websites online that give you these kind of information. So this small shift speed up our creation process, and we're able to generate better results as well.
I love that advice, Antoine, and it really rings true. In our very quickly, everyone watching, in my episode with Antoine, we were talking about ways of using social proof, and he shared about the video that shows people how to check out on your website as a form of user-generated content. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, hold on. Logically, that makes so much sense that it would work. And that those kind of tips are what comes out of those brilliant meetings of minds of this is all the stuff we're testing. So even if you're doing it yourself, see if you can find some other retailers to be swapping results with and talking about that, or just listen to our podcast where we share it all for you anyway. All of you, thank you so much for being here and being awesome panelists. I promised everyone we'd wrap up at the 15:15, and we are getting very, very close to that now. So I'm going to have to quickly take you all away. So thanks, guys. And then I am going to do the very fast wrap up. So thank you all for coming and watching us live. If you're watching on the replay, that's totally cool too. If you're at the Keep Optimizing website, you'll find details of all the stuff you can see in front of you right now. All those links will be there, together with the various links we've mentioned on the as we've been going through. I've been making notes of the different links to add in, so I will do that. If I've missed any, let me know and we will get those added in too. You have been listening to me, Chloe Thomas, from eCommerce MasterPlan and Keep Optimizing podcast. Becky Hopkin from Digital Gearbox, Rob Harrison-Plastow from Time Agency, Colby Flood from Brighter-Click, and Antoine Gagne from J7 Media. As you've just experienced, they all know an awful lot about what they were talking about. So do get in contact with them or take advantage of their offers if you want to make those gains in your Facebook ads at the moment. And the only thing left for me to tell you is that this month, July, we're getting into partnership marketing. Okay, so we're getting deep into this brilliant type of marketing where you use the trust someone's got in someone else to increase the ability to get your target customer to come and buy from you. Influencer marketing, like we were talking about earlier, is one method of partnership marketing, but there's lots of others, and we're covering a different one each week this month. The first one is live right now, where we're talking about having partnerships with other e-commerce stores. Much easier than you think, and huge potential within that. We're then going to be talking about partnerships with your own customers. Then we're doing affiliate marketing, and we're rounding off with influencer marketing. So all the big types of partnership marketing. It's a brilliant marketing strategy to be using to get a steady stream of perfectly target customers who love you from day one. So I highly recommend giving this a test and starting to build it up ready for Q4. But we'll be covering that on the podcast all of this month. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I hope you'll be tuning in to us very soon, because we exist to help you improve your marketing. So please do come and listen and spread the word. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this live Q&A session. I hope it's helped. I hope those of you watching the replay have enjoyed it too. And I'll see you again in something very, very soon.